that's going to be a big issue when these homeowners come up for renewal.
100%. We touched on it earlier, right? Where we said, 2023, people say, oh man, I'm in trouble if I'm renewing this year. 2024, I'm clear. Rates are going to drop. I'm good. But not the case, right? So we got to get used to this environment, get used to the affordability crisis and make that sort of the norm. You want to live in this city, this is what it is, right? To play in this sandbox, these are the prices, right?
Welcome to Real Talk with Gary. If you are listening to this show, that means you are either searching or ready to make a financial change in your life. This show is not only about real estate investing, but also the importance of mindset and the roadmap to a better, healthier life. Learn the daily routines of successful entrepreneurs and the latest market strategies and trends to stay ahead of the curve. Ready for some down-to-earth, north of the border Canadian talk? Here's your host, Gary Hibbert.
All right, welcome back. And today I've got Christopher Hummel and Quentin Cordick, who are my partners. They're real estate investors. They're also real estate agents. And we sit down and we discuss the latest trends, headlines, and market updates in the real estate investing world, and also just real estate in general. I like this particular show today because it's different. We haven't done anything particularly like this before, where we actually go through articles, read them, and then give our thoughts. So I think you guys are going to enjoy this one. Let me know, okay? So what do we dive into? We dive into market updates. We give the numbers on Canada on a whole. We dive into Toronto numbers, Durham region, Peterborough, and also the Kawartha regions as well. We also dive into the inflation numbers and what it looks like and what may happen this summer, right? There are mortgages that are coming up for renewal, and this means that there's going to be some pain. There are going to be people's, whether it be families or investors, numbers that are going to be doubling. All right, so we dive into that. We also talk about the Bank of Canada and what Tiff McClem is currently saying. And will interest rates come back down, or where are they potentially heading? We also dive into immigration and what the numbers were like last year. And what are they going to look like going forward for 2024 and 2025? We also dive into the household debts and how we stack up to the other G7 countries. I think you guys will find that interesting and also very shocking as well too. And we also dive into Bill 23 and what that means for investors for this year, and will this alleviate the housing crisis in the GTA that we continue to experience in the coming year. So interesting conversations, great topics. I hope you guys enjoy it. You know what? I know you guys are going to enjoy it. All right. And before we jump into it, just really quick, don't forget to check me out on YouTube. I've got the show notes in the, I get the link in the show notes below. I actually kind of like the way this one is starting to look now. It's got a good feel to it, but you guys be the judge of it, but you can see that at YouTube. And our last live event before we go on our summer hiatus is tonight, June the 1st, starting at 6:45 p.m. I got Mandy Branham talking about joint ventures. I've got Casey Wong on multifamily investing, and Victoria Soon talking about Bill 23 and how to forex your property and buying properties in Toronto. And last but not least, if you're enjoying the podcast, please leave a short review. It helps not only me make sure that I'm providing the best content that I possibly can for you guys, but also to help other listeners find the show as well too. All right, so with that, sit back, relax, and I will talk to you guys next week. Take care. Today's show is brought to you by Deep Pockets. Are you looking to borrow or invest funds? Deep Pockets is a preferred choice for secure lending. As a borrower, you have the option with flexible terms and repayment plans, as we have flexible credit criteria and income approvals. As an investor, you get to be the bank using your cash. You can use your RRSPs, your LIRAs, and even your TFSAs. Earn maximized cash flow or return with no out-of-pocket expenses. All right, guys. Chris, Quentin.
Hey.
We're live.
Yes.
You want 1 minute? What do you need a minute for? We're going, man. Let's rock and roll.
All right, let's go.
You got it?
This guy on paper right here.
Oh, we got lots of stuff. Okay, listen, here's why we got all kinds of paper in front of us, guys. So this is all, we're keeping all this shit in queue. All right, so listen, we got lots of stuff that we want to talk about today. We're going to touch on market update. We're going to be touching on inflation. We're going to be touching on the Bank of Canada, immigration, household debt, and Bill 23.
Yeah.
So we're going to be jumping around.
Yeah.
But I want to spend some time on each of those important topics. Maybe this is something that we do on a quarterly basis. We'll see if people enjoy this. I'm interested in doing this.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we got some articles. We might dissect a little bit. We'll throw them up on the links. We'll throw them up for you guys. And you can follow along.
Yeah, let's do that. So, Q, you are up first. Man, it's been an interesting time in the market over the last year. You know, and I think one of the things, at least for me, this is, I think, probably one of the mistakes that I think I made in the beginning was thinking working with real estate investors was recession proof. I just never fathomed, I think, that interest rates were going to go as high and as quickly as they did. I think that's what threw a lot of people off. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. But for me, it was more November, December, planning for 2023. Okay, things are calmer. Dust is settled, maybe. We're going to get into maybe some balanced territory, get into some negotiating. 2023 hit and boom, whirlwind, curveball. So that's what I found like, wow, got surprised by that. Right?
Yeah.
Now we're right back into the trenches again.
Yeah, for sure. So look, I think we're going to start off with market stats, updates, different markets. So let's touch on Canada as a whole. Mm-hmm. Then we'll dive into, we'll say the markets that we mostly work in. So we'll touch on Toronto. This is the new market that we're kind of jumping into a little bit. Durham region, Peterborough, and then let's touch on the Kawarthas as well too. Cottage country.
Okay.
All right.
Sure. Yeah. Now we're doing high level, right?
Yeah, just high level.
Yeah.
Let's see what Canada looks like on a whole. So what does Canada look like on a whole, Q?
Well, as we said, related to earlier in this couple sentences ago, the market is picking up, right? So
it's picking up big time,
right? So we're definitely seeing an increase of activity. Okay, so we're seeing national home sales surge 11% month over month. If we're just talking March to April, keep in mind again, this is macro, right? We're talking Canada, so we're just giving you a high level overview here. Doesn't necessarily pertain to your particular market. Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's important because it that's what you hear in the news, right? And that's what people expect, right? Yeah, okay, maybe it's not their market, but wait a second, Canada, 10, would you say 11 something percent?
Yeah, 11%.
Oh shoot!
Right?
Well, that's me.
Yeah.
Right. It doesn't even matter where you are. It's just what people think overall.
Right. And I think we talked about this before as well too. Is that you're not buying a home and just like you're not going to look at Canada as a whole and say, okay, I'm going to buy a home because it's doing this. You're going to look at your particular market.
You are.
Right.
But you hear in the news 10%.
Right. Well, how is Canada doing and how is it comparing to the rest of the world?
Yeah, exactly. And in your mind, that's kind of what shapes your perspective.
100%.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, exactly. So we're definitely seeing that uptick, and we have the home price index, which climbed 1.6 month over month, but it was down 12% year over year, right? So people always want to see how do we compare it to last year, right? April, sort of the tail end of the peak, and compare that to 2023, we're down about 12% on a macro scale.
So home price index, HPI, right?
HPI, yes.
Yeah, okay, so that's not really average house price, but it's a similar metric.
Okay. Yeah, exactly. It more compares apples to apples when you get into home price index, right? Yep. So it's a good number to look at. So definitely we're seeing, sure, prices are down, but we're seeing that uptick going up now. What you'll see as we talk about other markets, it's pretty consistent across all the marketplaces we're in right now.
Okay, cool. All right. Toronto. How's Toronto looking?
Toronto is, well, what's our problem? So we have, if we're looking at year over year.
What's our problem?
Sales
What's our problem,
we're going to say sales are down 5%. Oh my gosh. What do you mean sales are down 5%? That's not what I'm hearing.
Yeah, watch how the news can manipulate.
Yeah, multiple offers, but what do you mean sales are down?
Right.
Well, okay, 5%, sure. Listings are down 38%.
There you go.
year over year.
Year over year. There's the nuts and bolts.
But hold on.
So
hold on.
that
Don't
means
forget.
people are sitting put. They're not going. They're not moving.
They're not moving. But here's the other big thing. Here's the other thing. Year over year, and that compares 2022, which was crazy, right? Well, at the beginning, anyways,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you could say that beginning kind of kept things on a high level even all throughout the end of 2022. If you compare it to 2021, I bet it's just as crazy, that stat. But if you go back to, a little bit further back where it wasn't so, a roller coaster kind of deal, it would probably be fairly consistent. We got the same problem. Like that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah. And I guess, that's when we look at the sales, obviously we're down last year and then record breaking year in 2021, right? So you're not going to have that 2021 year again. But as we're saying now, just that's the problem. It's supply, right? So sure, sales are down, but the pool of buyers are competing for a lot less inventory. That's our problem.
Yeah,
Right.
sales are down as a result of available properties.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's move on to Durham. Or are we done with Toronto?
Yeah. So average price, if we're just saying year over year, April 2023 to April 2022, we're down about 7%.
Okay.
Okay. In the price point.
What about month over month, or do we even care about that?
Yeah, we're on an uptick there. The average
Right.
price is definitely
And
on
we've
the
talked
uptick
about this before as
since
well,
January.
too. So even though we're on an uptick, you're talking about an uptick from April to May.
Yeah, even
Or-
even January, February, we've seen that
Right.
gradual
But
uptick.
that's normal.
right.
Well,
Coming
springtime.
For the most part,
Yes.
it's normal.
Yes.
But don't
Right,
forget-
because a lot of times people will say, "Oh, well, we're up from the previous month." Okay, yeah, depending,
which doesn't mean anything.
exactly, right? Especially if you're talking about February to March, of course, that's
Right.
typically what happens, unless there's like an anomaly in the marketplace.
And that's sort of what happened during COVID. It threw our air quotes typical cycles all out of whack, right? The
Right.
spring, fall, like winter, we were going crazy. Like
Summer was nuts.
It was just all over the map, right? But definitely, typically, exactly,
Okay.
that's where we should see the
do
most
we know
activity.
do we know kind of what the lowest point was, right? In terms of month and price point, I'm saying. Like some markets it'd be November 2022. Maybe other markets was Jan 2023.
Yeah, I think it would have ranged, if we're generalizing, July to December, anywhere in that 2022 range was
That would
that's
you believe is the
softest part.
lowest part, and then the prices started going back up at that point? Because I've seen it's a V shape, right? Would you say it's a V shape or a U shape?
More of a U, I
Really?
think, because the rise is a little more gradual, right? Because
Okay,
coming
that's
January, when I listed my first property in January, I wasn't expecting multiple offers, right? Multiple offers. Oh, that's interesting.
And we're talking in 2023. Yes.
Right. So that's when I started to see. So it was more gradual. Like the pot was simmering, right? Then it started, warming up, getting.
And I think
closer
part of
to
that as well
boiling.
too was the messaging, and we're going to get into this shortly, from the Bank of Canada saying they're going to start cooling things off in regards to interest rates. But we'll dive into that later.
Yeah.
Let's finish off the different markets here, and then we'll jump into the next topic. So Durham, how does Durham look?
So sales were down in Durham 17% year over year. Okay. And then the average selling price was down 11%. Okay. So again, it's coming down to, if we look at the listings in 2022 in April, there were just over 1,200 compared to last year in April 2022, 2,300. So over 1,000 less listings.
Wow,
that's big.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's for Durham.
That's for Durham region there.
All right. And so that goes to show you also with the messaging why from the Bank of Canada, and also with the low inventory, why you started getting those multiple offers. Even with one of my listings, I had like 22
it's
offers.
crazy.
Yeah. Anything else on Durham?
No, that's the
Okay,
high
Peterborough.
level there.
Yeah, high level Peterborough.
So what are we looking at? New listings year over year for April down about 28%. Okay. What else we want to look at there? The
So listings down.
Listings
what about
down.
And
what
an
about
average
sales
price,
price.
average price, we're down about 4%
from
Okay.
year over year.
this year,
Yes.
from this time last year?
Yes.
Only 4%.
Yeah.
Yeah, because prices just boom, shot back up. You know?
Interesting.
Yeah, and we just talked about that. It's typical spring. Okay, sure. But they've been coming up since, I'm just looking at it right now. The price has been coming up since December.
Yeah, there's a wider gap though in Oshawa.
Yeah, I mean, every market's slightly
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, we understand that.
Yeah. Okay, cool. And then last Kawarthas.
Let's see. Kawarthas here, if we're looking at our listings here, down 24% in Kawarthas there.
Year over year.
Year over year. And Gary knows this one. Price 20%
Down.
Yeah,
there's a lot of cottages that I'm seeing just sitting on the market.
It.
You know what I think? And again, this is my thought, and I think also there's a belief behind this as well too, is that there's a lot of investors that went out, bought cottages, seeing the numbers that some of these investors were getting,
rentals.
where they were $500 a night, $600, $700 a night. But those were not the typical numbers that you would get on a nightly basis because lockdowns, people couldn't go anywhere. And so people thought those were the real numbers and they weren't. And just to finish it off, I had Riley Oakle in here talking about short-term rentals. Like, Gary, I looked at Air DNA and we're back to normal. And I think people didn't do enough homework to understand these numbers were out of whack compared to 2018 and 19.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think nobody did the numbers. And that's why you see all these companies grew so fast, right? And this is not real estate in particular. I'm just saying in general. Companies over that time period grew so fast, and now they're having to scale back so heavily simply because they had all this money flush coming in, right? Everybody was spending money. And now all of a sudden, oh, shoot, there's no money coming in. Layoffs.
Yeah.
Right? Not the real numbers, in other words.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at the incorrect numbers for sure.
And then just one more thing on stats in general here, Gary, is one thing we like to pay attention to is months of inventory.
Yes.
Right. So if we're looking between these marketplaces that we're discussing here, we're 1.2 to maybe 2.5, right?
So we're still in a seller's market.
Territory all day long.
Right. And so what's a balanced market for somebody listening who doesn't know? Balance is
4 to 6 months. 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
Right. So basically, if we had no other homes hit the market, we would be done with our inventory between 1 and maybe 2.5 months in these different marketplaces.
Leave a lot of buyers in the lurch.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's dive into Chris. The first article here is inflation. So we're going to spend some time on this one here. So this is from the Financial Post.
Right.
May 16th, the Consumer Price Index CPI figures released on May 16th revealed a 28.5% increase in mortgage interest costs in April compared to a year earlier. That's the 10th consecutive month that mortgage interest costs have risen, and the 4th straight month that year-over-year increases have topped 20%. Someone who took a 3-year mortgage in mid-2020 would now be facing a huge increase in their monthly payments when they renew at 2023 mortgage rates. And that gets picked up in the CPI component, says Avery Shenfield, chief economist at CIBC Capital Markets.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Huh? Isn't that wow, I'm shocked. I'm shocked that inflation has crept back up because mortgage rates and, have not mortgage rates, but mortgage payments have gone up, right? Because what's a huge part of our GDP here in Canada is housing. Right. Whoa, what a shock. But now listen, I don't think that the government really is pinpointing anything in particular, right? They're just saying, hey, we want to control inflation and we got to increase the rates. So, you think about economically, that makes sense. The problem is, and we were talking about this earlier, is that because we're so heavily anchored to housing as our GDP. Well, Quentin, what did you say? We don't make anything.
No, we're service-based economy.
Right? So it's not really a shock. Now, it's the opposite direction. So, but it makes sense, right? Because it's such a large percentage of our economics right here in the country, our GDP. So I don't know. To me, it doesn't. It makes sense, but it is scary. So what are they saying now? I mean, the next thing you can say is, well, whoa, wait a second. They are thinking again of another quarter point, right? You guys,
yes,
right? You heard that.
What did inflation do? Do we know? Do we have those numbers?
4.4.
Yeah.
So up from 4.3 to 4.4 month over month.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not. I mean, listen. It's not. It's not big. I mean, I guess overall it's big.
But I think the concern is if somebody's looking at this. Look, a lot of people are looking at inflation. People don't even care about inflation, like,
100%.
Up until last year.
We got the fast-tracked education on inflation.
Right. So now somebody sees that uptick and now they're like, oh my God, are we going in the wrong direction?
Right.
And then the Bank of Canada now, we'll dive into Bank of Canada in a minute, is do we now potentially have to cool this thing down again? Because they definitely don't want this thing to creep in. What else is this article saying about inflation that is of any particular interest?
Let's see.
And what are your thoughts on this, Q?
In what aspect?
Just on inflation, is this thing under control? The big thing everybody wants to know is when are these interest rates coming down, right? So what are your thoughts on inflation? And go ahead.
Yeah, it's tough, as Chris was alluding to, because real estate is such a big component of that, and I don't see affordability getting better anytime soon.
0%.
So how does inflation come down? Do they, change the definition of the goods in the bag, right? To
now
bring
you're
it down?
talking about CPI. And
Right.
look, and it's not will they change the CPI numbers? They have changed it over the years.
Right, they will.
Right. Which, before I used to be like, oh, this is incorrect. They shouldn't change it. But things do change.
Right.
So I get it. I understand that they do have to change it along the way.
Yeah.
It's just the question is, do they allocate it correctly?
Right. And what is the motive behind the change?
Right.
Yeah, and who's to say? Are we, us three, are we to say that? I don't know. No, exactly. I don't know. We just follow the stats and, we do whatever we have to do. We control what we can control. But you know what? We were just talking about just housing. And so housing implies mortgages, right? Mortgage rates and other things. But what this article is also saying is that, rents are huge as well, right? Because rents have gone up like crazy, right? So that's inflation, right?
100%.
And that's not something that you would typically think about. But when rates rents go up, near 10%, year over year, which we got the other stats for that too.
Well, it says right here. So total shelter costs rose by mid-single digits in each of the past 2 months, up 4.9% in April and 5.4% in March. Those are big movements.
100%. We see the rental market. We're in it every day, so we know the cost, right? And it's getting more difficult with incomes to try to match up with some of those rental rates.
But here's the interesting thing, though. Just so right after this says, but however, job and wage growth are ample enough so that Canadians are paying 6% more for rent and still have enough money left to go out to dinner and cover rising food costs, he said. That's bullshit.
Maybe, but people are certainly complaining.
Yeah.
People are certainly complaining.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't see how it's enough.
No, there's no going out. It's throw on their Netflix and maybe skip the dishes. That's their.
You know what the craziest part about skip the dishes is though, and Uber Eats and whatever, fast food, let's call it. Sounds cheap. Wow, inexpensive, right? But it's more expensive than going to the grocery store and cooking up a good, nutritious meal. I mean, realistically, you get skip the dishes. You get already. I can't say the quality of the food. That doesn't even matter. But it's expensive. You got to pay the delivery and so forth. But you think you're saving $1. But in all honesty, when you go to the store and you can buy something and cook 5 full meals for the same money that you can spend to go to name your place. I don't know, man. It's just basic math to me. But I still don't understand how Uber Eats and skip the dishes and all that stuff just keeps going crazy, blowing up. How are they making so much money? You know what I mean?
Well, I think part of it as well too is that people that owned homes over the last couple of years, depending on how long they've been in it, now also have newfound wealth that they could be eating into.
Yes. Today, that's correct. They could.
Right? So they're eating into it. There was a significant increase, right? And that's probably part of it. Okay, anything else on this before we wrap it up and move on to the Bank of Canada?
I think inflation is pretty cut and dry right now. We just saw the news say it's gone up, and no wonder why.
Yeah. Right. Well, sorry, one more point. Maybe we'll talk about unemployment, right? That's holding at 5%. So, that's not where the Bank of Canada might have thought it was going to be either, right?
Well, look, Ben, they want to push. There's two things. It's either inflation runs wild or they push us into a recession, right? They want, and they're trying to create a, they keep talking about they want a mild recession, and so they're playing with the levers, but that's where they're trying to push us into.
Yeah. And with those numbers, it's not really going the way they thought it would.
A little stronger,
right?
Right. Okay. So then that leads us into our next article, which is the Bank of Canada. So Q, I'll pass this one over to you, which is from the Globe and Mail. All right. And the title of this one here is Canadians should not expect Bank of Canada to return to low rates, McClem says.
Yeah. So obviously, I think we've got acclimatized to this low rate environment over the last 10 plus years. And he's just sort of preparing people that think maybe, like the ones who renew this year, oh man, they're in trouble. They got to renew at 5%. But those in 2024, people thought, I'm golden. I'll be renewing at 3%. Maybe not, based on this article right here. Right, this might be more of the norm. Are we gonna settle around 4 or 5% in that sort of range for fixed interest rates? Time will tell. Right. I know my first one was 6.25%. Right, the first mortgage I ever got. Right, so people have just been acclimatized to this low environment, and he's trying to allude to the fact that this isn't going to be the case. Right, although. We rewind when he said, "Don't worry, low interest rate environment for a while." Right,
bold-faced lie.
What's prime rate right now here in Canada? 6.7, right?
I
mean,
Bank of Canada is a 4.5, and then the prime is 6.7.
Right, 6.7. What is it in the States for a 30-year mortgage? I think right now, 30-year mortgage. I was just looking at it yesterday. Is 6.6. 6.625 anyways. Maybe that's an average. I don't know. Right. But that's near 7%, right? Where are we for a typical 5-year, 30-year, or 25-year amortization, I guess? 5.5 on a fixed?
Yeah.
Maybe something like that? I don't know. Maybe it's somewhere, maybe 5%, 5.5. But yeah, the States are way ahead of us.
Right.
And if they go up again, what happens? We still got to consider doing the same thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the big brother. We're tied fairly close to them. I mean, they've got a larger economy than we do.
Yeah, right? And we got to follow, because otherwise, what do we just talk about? We don't make anything, right?
Yeah.
Everything gets imported, and our biggest trade partner is the States. And if they move, if we have too much of a gap between the interest rates, the dollar suffers. Right. And we got all these factors, right? All these factors.
Right. And I'm just looking at this article as well, too, right? It says nobody should expect that interest rates are going to be going back down to the very low levels that we've seen over the last decade or so. So he's saying it straight out, right?
Sure.
Yep.
Right. Mr. McClem told reporters following the release of the central bank's annual financial system review. So he's coming out and he's pretty much saying, this is where we're at.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we're going to be here for a bit. Unless something breaks.
Yeah, and you know what? You're right. If there's a big change of some nature, then it might be different.
Yeah.
Right. Listen. You know what? I was just reading. Now this might have no bearing, but I was just reading that China has announced 65 million new cases of COVID.
65 million.
65 million.
I saw the headline, Chris. I couldn't even click on it, man. I wasn't in the mood, man. My energy felt good, man. I couldn't click on it.
So what does that mean? Does that mean it's coming here and it's going to ravage us again? Yes, maybe. I don't know. But maybe that means that a lot of production in China gets shut down again. And how does that fare for, price of products and other things, and how does that fare for inflation?
Well, I think now you're diving into a different topic, which I think is also important in regards to now globalization or de-globalization. And I think even though there's a lot of talk about the globalization piece, I think the talk now more is de-globalization. I think it's talking about bringing manufacturers back home. That it's not about just in time. It's what's the other thing? It's not just in time, but Matthew Frederick had talked about this.
Yeah,
but essentially, what you want the stuff here, right? You don't want the just in time model.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And is it just in case? Maybe not just in time, but just in case. I could be wrong. Somebody fact check that, but I can't remember.
Like that. Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, we don't have manufacturing.
Right. Anything else on the Bank of Canada and rates?
No, I guess people, renewing 2024, gotta just pay attention, right? And start looking into your finances now, right? Where am I at? If I'm at 3%, what does it look like at 5%? Right. And just be prepared.
Well, one other point though is I know, the show is about housing for the most part, but it is, talking about everything overall. And the thing that we don't factor too is sure the housing market and the mortgage and so forth, but you got other things too. You got loans, right? You got car payments, you got like businesses with loans, and these all have to factor, right? So now the interest rates don't go down. Sure, we talked about housing, but the interest rates don't go down. So how does that affect just business, right? I mean, they got to pass that on to the consumer, or they're done. They out of business. Right, it impacts everything.
Yeah, I mean, I'll kind of wrap it up with this. I think this is an important point: is that if you are, and obviously, a lot of people are listening to this are real estate investors, and they're trying to figure out, hey, should I invest now or should I wait? I think it's always about investing, whether it's up or down or sideways. I think you should always be investing. That's what we're trying to dissect here today.
Yeah.
Is there's nothing wrong with putting yourself in a fixed rate and letting it run for 5 years. Let it run for 5 years.
Yeah, but everybody's used to real estate. You spin around in your chair, 360, $100,000 in your pocket, right? That's what we've seen.
Well, the BRRRR strategy, that's what they wanted. They wanted to keep it open or a variable rate so that they can put their money in, pull it out as quickly as possible.
Not even a BRRRR though. Don't even do anything. Just let it sit there, even vacant for that matter. And next year is going to be worth 100 to 200 more, right? And now you can do whatever you want with the money.
Yeah.
And that's what we're used to. But where you're going is, hey, this, we're going back to normal territory, and shouldn't we?
Right.
Isn't real estate a long-term gig, anyways?
Exactly, and that's a phenomenal point. That's exactly what it should. It shouldn't be this get rich quick. It's not a get rich quick. Right. People thought it was.
But that's where all the investors are. They're in their head, get rich quick, and therefore they're not in the market right now.
Exactly.
I say investors. I don't. I guess I don't know. Maybe there's another term for them. I shouldn't even say
speculators. We'll say speculators.
Those people.
The easy Don Cherry.
Yeah, the speculators. This is right.
It's the world we live in, right? Everyone wants the overnight success. What is it? Ozempic now. Hey, lose weight. Just take Ozempic, right? Like, why put in the work and invest in a property and hold it for 10, 20 years? God forbid. Right.
All right, cool. So we're good with that one. Let's dive into immigration, Chris. This is an article from the National Post.
Yeah.
Let me touch on a couple points here, and then I'll pass over to you. So, Liberal immigration plan envisions steadily increasing immigration levels over the next few years, rising to 500,000 new permanent residents entering the country by 2025. Those are some big numbers.
Yeah, it is. And that's a big departure from where it was just years ago, right? And years ago, even, it was pretty big, 350,000-ish. And even, what was it, last year? I think it was 450, something like that. But that doesn't count all of the non-permanents either, right? Like, I mean, this article is just talking about permanent residents, which is fine. And, you can understand what the Liberal government is trying to do. Again, it's the same thing. They're just trying to bolster the economy, right? Bolster the GDP by bringing in more people, because we're not having enough kids to keep the population growing. So you bring in new people, you bring in people with education and so forth.
Right.
And then
and a working force.
And then absolutely the working force. And then what happens is 3 years down the line, give or take, they're out buying a house. And what does that do? That spurs the economy, right? You know, like housing is so central. You buy a house, look what happens, right? You get the realtors, you get the brokers, the mortgage brokers, you get Home Depot, right? You get all the contractors, you get the lawyers, right? Shoot, you get the city, because the city's making more money now, right? In taxes. You get the roofers. Shoot, I mean, we can go on and on. Like everything revolves around housing. So why not bring in more people? Why not bring in people, like you said, with jobs, and you know, they can bolster the job market. And now you've got your whole economy just steaming ahead because, well, going back, we don't make anything. We don't build anything. We're service, right?
And we do have an aging population, which I think people don't pay attention to.
Aging population. We're only doing 1.2, I think, 1 point something kids.
Yeah.
It's less than 2 kids per couple, right? And so and more people are dying than births. So what do you got to do? You got to bring in more people. That was China's issue, right? They had the one kid, and now their population was
right. I think they stopped that. Now they can have as well. I don't know how many kids you can have. No, but I don't think there is a limit on it anymore.
Yeah, but again, you know what happens is most first world countries, they end up with, you know, most rich countries, they end up with a small number of kids per couple for the most part, right? Because you got other things to do. Right. And anyways, long story short is this is the plan. This is where it is. And the numbers are going to go up to 500,000 permanent residents. It's suggesting by 2025, but I could have sworn it was earlier than that.
Yeah, I think in the article here it says immigrant entering Canada next year to 465. After that, 485,000. Right. And then we're going to 500,000 in 2025. At least that's from Sean Fraser's office, who's the immigration minister.
Right. So I don't know.
Now, he didn't say that.
No,
his department said that.
Yeah.
So now he can blame that on a lackey. But I think that's where we're probably going most likely anyways.
Oh yeah, 100%. Now back to the housing issue. You know, how's our supply going to catch up?
But see, the government does one thing. One hand does one thing, the other hand does another thing. It's fantastic. You paint a magical picture, because Canada is a magical place. You paint a magical picture, and you come, and where are you living? Right, you're living in a hotel, a motel, Holiday Inn. You're on the streets, right?
So,
like, how don't we see that?
They're sold a bag of milk and honey.
It's so crazy, you know. It's just I don't know.
Do you think? Here's what I think. I think we're on the precipice. I think we're on the cusp. I was going to say, right, we're on the cusp. Yeah. We're on the cusp of, I believe, where the next generation coming up will look at the previous generation and say, wow, you guys are lucky you had real estate in Toronto or close to Toronto.
Probably.
You wouldn't go to Manhattan and say, this is unfair.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Why can't I buy a house in Manhattan? Mm-hmm. You just missed that boat. Yeah. It's not like you can't buy a house. Mm-hmm. You can go to Belleville.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You go to Belleville and buy a house. You can go to Petawawa and go buy a house. There's just places where you can buy a house, but most people want to buy close to the hub.
So the mindset has to tweak and say, there's nothing wrong with renting. Yeah. I'm living in the city I want to live in. There's nothing wrong with renting. Yeah. I got shelter. I'm comfortable. My family's good. So that's the mindset where everything in the media, oh, your kids won't be able to own. Well, maybe that mindset has to switch.
Right. Where it feels like as if it's a right. Like, this is my right to own a home. Right. And that's, you can't. You just, you might not be able to buy it here in Toronto.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Life's about choices, right?
That's it.
I want to live in Toronto, or do I want to live in Belleville?
Listen, I know we had a condo in Toronto. This is so crazy. Bought it for like 120,000. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then when our family was growing, we wanted to stay in Toronto. Mm-hmm. We couldn't afford it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. We couldn't afford it. And so then we had to move to Ajax. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to move to Ajax. And people forget this. There was only 3 lanes in Ajax, and there was no lights on the highway in Ajax, or even, I think, a part of Pickering. Mm-hmm. And if you remember, too, Salem was a rickety old bridge to get to Taunton. Only one car could go across I think it was just past Roslyn.
Okay.
People forget that. But that's where I had to move to because that's all I could afford.
Right.
Now that city has expanded more. Now look at people. People know where Curtis and Bowmanville are.
You can't.
They
even
didn't
get
know
an
that back in
Ajax.
2012. Remember when we were doing investments back then?
Beautiful homes in
Bowmanville,
beautiful neighborhoods.
Curtis. why am I going out there?
Yeah.
Now look at that. Listen, I just went and looked at a semi-detached in Bowmanville for like over $1 million.
Right.
Okay, so that's the nature of I think where things are going.
Yeah.
And I think people are sitting on the sideline hoping and waiting. Okay, I can't wait for real estate to go down. It's gonna crash. No. I don't see it, man.
That's the news, right? That's you watch, the average person watches the news, and the average guy that thought he was going to make a quick buck, right? He's skipped out. He's gone, and you think that the news can fabricate. Maybe I'd say fabricate, but they could certainly take any stat and manipulate it any way they want. In either case, I really think that, and I keep saying the same thing. It's like, go back to whatever the worst, year in housing was, 1989. Let's just throw that one out. And you try to find a house for that same price, the house that grandma picked up in 89 for the same damn price. You can't do it. Go back to 2017. You can't find a house for that price. You were just saying that, $1 million for Bowmanville. And I think that's light, to be honest with you. You just can't find it. And inflation alone, regardless of what happens, inflation alone is going to carry the price. It's what it is. And look, one of the other things too is, just pull up an article. It's nothing we were going to talk about, but Canadian home building costs surge higher, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe I got to drop the mic on that.
Okay, let's look at it from a timeline. Let's even go back into the past. Homes that were 100,000 in the 1930s were like, that's crazy.
That's like $3 million.
That home now is like 42 million. Okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So just take a look at the timeline of history. Just do that. And then that'll give you an indication of where things are going.
Right.
People think, it's gonna come back. It's not. The government, you can call it a Ponzi. You can call it a Ponzi scheme, which I think it is. Sure. But it doesn't matter. You got to play within the rules.
Yeah.
And this is where it's going.
I think, to be honest with you, I think it's impossible. I think it is at 100% impossible for prices to back up more than maybe 10 years. Right? Affordable housing, there's no such thing.
Look, this is one of the reasons why the banks will lend up to what? Well, they even do 95% with insurance.
Right.
But typically they'll say, okay, we won't do with insurance, which is CMHC,
80%,
for 80%.
Right.
Because they don't want to see that market drop less than 20%.
Yeah, but I don't even think it's possible. I mean, look at we were just talking about deflation earlier, right? And you were saying technology, right? As technology increases, speeds and so forth, things should deflate, right? In terms of, and they should, of course, technology,
efficiencies,
but everything else goes up, right? Look at costs of doing anything, right? Look at costs of, you just go to Home Depot, right? Everything in Home Depot is way up in price. Think about just wages overall, right? Every union is out there picketing because they feel that they're not making enough money. Wages are going up. How is it possible that a house is going to cost you less to build today than it will or than it did yesterday?
Yeah.
Right.
I think right now we're just going through this transition of where the interest rates are where they are, and I think they're going to be there for a while. And Chris, you say this all the time. Listen, man, every year we've bought homes that have been too expensive.
Every year.
Go to 2012, 2014, 26, every year. It's like these numbers don't make sense.
Yeah.
I guarantee we're going to have the same conversation in 2030.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We're going to be with more gray hair saying the same shit.
Chris's vinyl is getting worn out because he's playing that record over and over, man.
All right. Anything else on this topic here before we move on? I think we beat that one up.
I think we've all beat that one up.
All right. Let's touch on the next one, Quentin, here, which is household debt. This is an article in CBC, May 23rd. Canadian households are more in debt than those in any other G7 country, and the amount they owe is now more than the value of the country's entire economy. Let me just finish off with this here. So variable rate mortgage holders have felt the pinch of higher interest rates immediately, but the central banks warned that fixed rate holders should brace for a similar impact when they renew in the coming years. I think that's going to be a big issue when these homeowners come up for renewal.
100%. We touched on it earlier, right? Where we said, 2023, people say, oh man, I'm in trouble if I'm renewing this year. 2024, I'm clear. Rates are going to drop. I'm good. But not the case, right? So we got to get used to this environment, get used to the affordability crisis and make that sort of the norm. You want to live in this city, this is what it is, right? To play in this sandbox, these are the prices, right? So that mindset has to adjust. In terms of the debt stuff, my opinion, there's going to be a lot of pain. All right. People got used to what you guys referred to earlier, taking money out the house like it's an ATM machine, not necessarily investing, spending. Oh, this kitchen's old. This bathroom needs to be renovated. And car in the driveway, that's a little old.
Oh,
Let me get a new one while I'm at it.
That new hot whip.
Yeah. So I think people are going to feel the pinch. The banks and the mortgage side, I'm not too concerned. But what about those unsecured line of credits? What about all those debts now? People are getting by on maybe tapping into those line of credits because as we always say, there's more month than money for a lot of people, right? And I think we're going to see a lot more pain. I think we're going to see people that were in the middle slide down. I think the middle is going to get squeezed. We're going to have the haves and have-nots.
Yeah, I think the middle class is always getting squeezed.
Yeah,
I think that happens as time moves on.
Well, sure.
And I think the only thing that saves them from time to time, well, I know because I was in it, is their home. If they have a home, because you can then tap into that equity and bury some of your debt.
Well, look what it says right here. It says CMHC report noted that 3/4 of Canadian household debt is tied to mortgages, right?
Yeah, that's great. So 3/4 of Canadian household debt is tied to mortgages.
Yeah. So it's big.
So that will be an issue, like we said, on renewals. Right now, everybody's good. It's the renewals, right? So this hasn't played out yet. We're not in no crisis right now. It's just warming up. So let's see what the next, 18 to 24 months look like.
Yeah. Are we expecting, I don't know if there's anything out there. I'm sure there is, or if you guys can look into it, what the summer even looks like. Right, with these household debts and with families, whether they have mortgages coming up for renewal, do we expect that we're going to see more homes come on the market, or do people have enough equity in some of these homes where, I think there's two things, where they can then hold on, number one, number two, potentially get a private mortgage, right? Because we're also seeing that side of our business starting to go up, or number three, do they just sell?
Well, why are you thinking summer in particular?
Well, I don't know. Maybe not this summer in particular, but I mean, I think as time goes on,
right,
you're going to see homes that are just going to come up for renewal, right? And I think I'm saying summer because that's our third busiest market, and we've got listings coming on from spring, and you're going to maybe potentially get more listings coming on in the summer. Where now, do we have a larger pool of listings? Right. Because of the leftover from spring and the summer.
Okay, sure. I think though, don't forget that sometimes on renewal, or when you're delinquent.
Yep.
Right. Because I know there's the big talk about the delinquencies and all the rate. Delinquency rate is going up, but there's such a small delinquency rate in the first place that a little bit of a percentage here or there doesn't really make a huge difference. But as soon as you're delinquent, it doesn't mean your house is automatically sold, right? It still takes like 6 months before anything really happens, right? You get all these notices and right. So, and of course you can redeem and like you said, private mortgages. So it may very well not, happen immediately, right? The can could still get kicked down the road.
I believe you're right. I don't see any kind of big imminent threat happening or coming soon. This is good. Listen, number one, two, here's another one, is that Canadians our what's it called again now? Delinquency, or what's the word I'm looking for? We're default. Like they will fight tooth and nail before they don't pay their mortgage. They will sell off their toys, their trucks, their Sea-Doos. They will sell everything off to continue to keep that house going for as long as possible.
Yeah, and I don't think we're going to hit a level where we see this influx of inventory because of that. Someone's in trouble, they're going to sell their house, and the market will know wiser. Right, you got a good agent, and it's going to sell for top dollar in this market, and you move on, and you rebuild.
And you touched on this earlier too, right? Like, how much do we have right now in inventory? Right, what are we? 1 to 2 months.
Yeah. Right. So it's
there's going to be somebody there to pick it up.
Yeah.
As long as it's priced correctly.
The kicking the can down the road, and you alluded to, you're seeing more applications come in on the private side. Okay, that's good, but what's their exit strategy? If you have to go to a private right now, what's your exit strategy? Where are you going to in a year from now? If you can't do an A or a B right now, you got to go to private. What's going to change in another year to get you out of that private?
Right.
So people, I find, are just trying to kick that can down the road as opposed to facing reality earlier. Let me just sell, regroup, and then see if I can move further out or get back into the market other ways.
Well, I think people are they're praying, right? They're praying these interest rates are going to come back down.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're definitely praying. Well, I had somebody come in the other day. I was showing a rental property, and he came in and he says to me, I said, no, he had like a great income. He told me he had great credit, and obviously I can only go on his word with that. I didn't check it. And he just sold a house because he split up with the wife. So he just sold the house. So he's got a few dollars in his pocket. And I said to him, I said, well, what are you doing here? Like, why are you trying to rent from me? And he said, oh, you know what? No. I said, why don't you go buy a house? He said, no, I think the prices are going to drop. I don't think this is the end. I think they're going to drop a lot. How many times have we heard that? Yeah. You hear that all the time. And they might drop temporarily. They might drop slightly, but we just saw it earlier. It doesn't last. And even in this current environment, with high rates, the prices are still going up.
Listen, those starter homes are still around the same price as last year.
Right.
Yeah.
Even with the interest rates where they are compared to where they were, like at the low of 1.5 or whatever it was to where it is, those townhomes are still the same price in Durham.
Yeah. And listen, I'll be honest with you. I wanted to slap him in the head. To be honestly, I just want to say, hey, honestly, where's your head? If to be honest with you, if you're not in real estate, then I don't know. You're just obviously not seeing the writing on the wall. And I said, in my head, I thought, well, even if you buy today and you feel that the prices are going to, drop, I don't know how much you could possibly think the prices will plummet. But I can tell you, 3 or 4 years, 5 years down the line, because it takes the average person typically, 5 to 7 years that they're going to move anyways. And within that time, you're going to be in good position.
Yes.
Right? I don't know. It just didn't make any sense to me. That's all. Like, you know what? I swear, I wish I had have moved to a much bigger house when the price difference was only $100,000. And now it's like $500,000. And guess what? Let's say I'm stuck. And that's like everybody else. You can't even move.
You're right. And look, and even when we bought our home in Ajax at 3, we bought it at detached double car garage for under 3.
And you thought you were crazy.
And not me. My neighbor who bought his for $460.
Right.
I'm like, are you crazy? Right. You're paying an extra $60,000-$70,000.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Now you look at it.
Yeah.
So it'll be the same now today. It's like $1 million. You're paying 1.2.
Yeah.
Okay. 10 years from now, you're gonna be like, I should have stressed myself.
Yeah.
I remember my brother when he bought in the beaches. I'm like, man, that's crazy. You're buying down there for, like at the time, it was maybe 8 or 9.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Okay. Well, look at it now. And you know who gave his father-in-law said, stretch yourself.
Yeah.
He's like in his 70s.
Yeah.
So, right.
Yeah.
He's like, because
He's seen a thing or two.
he saw where things have come.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But that comes with age, that comes
Wisdom.
with time, that comes with looking at that whole timeline.
He saw a thing or two. That's right.
Right. Exactly. Anything else on this before we move on to our last topic?
No, if people are listening and you feel yourself in any type of pinch, get ahead of it. Don't sit wishing on low interest rates, wishing on things you can't control. Control what you can control today.
Yes, 100%. Mr. Hummel, Bill 23 in Multiplexes is an article from CBC.
Yeah.
So housing advocates have welcomed a recent Toronto Council decision to allow construction of multiplexes across city neighborhoods, which had been dominated by single-family homes in Toronto. Multiplexes are defined as low-rise housing containing 2 to 4 units within a single building.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? And essentially, this is Bill 23.
Yeah, Bill 20. I love it, man. I think it's fantastic. But I don't love it for the reason that they're, purporting. I like it because it makes sense to me. I look at other cities that are older than Toronto. And, Toronto's like honestly, in the grand scheme of things, it's a new city. And because of that, there's a lot of single family homes, and they weren't even thinking density at the time. And Toronto only became the economic powerhouse of Canada in like the late 70s, early 80s. Before that, it was always Montreal. And if you go to Montreal, you'll see in the downtown core, you'll see in the plateau, you'll see in Côte-des-Neiges and those areas that first came out. To be honest with you, I could go on about the neighborhoods over there. There are no single family homes. For the most part, they're all multis. They're all rows of 2 and 3 multi-unit properties. Those are the ones, if you guys go to Montreal, those are the ones with the metal spiral staircases or the metal staircase that look treacherous in the wintertime. Yeah, but it made sense because that was the economic powerhouse of Canada at the time. So it was dense, and they understood that. So those buildings are 100, 150 years old. Some of them probably about 100 or so. Now you move to Toronto and you look and you go, whoa, wait, how come there's so many single family homes? Well, because there wasn't much need for any further density at the time, and it just, that stock of old homes hasn't changed, and we got so many more people coming in that I love that they're transitioning to this, but I find that it's not what it's purported to be. I think this is supposed to be the savior of affordable housing. I think that's what it's supposed to sound like, but affordable housing is just a little soundbite. It doesn't even exist. It's just something that the politicians will say. Listen, no knock against Ford or anybody else. I'm just saying, it sounds great. I'm for affordable housing, but it's impossible. There's no such thing anymore, right? We look at rents, right? Rents are going up. Wages are going up. Price to build is going up. You think a developer is going to come in here and build these properties and lose money? Right? Because, he's got a heart in it. Nah, come on, man. So anyways, but I like this because you can tear down a house or you can add up to 4 units now. So I really like that. But my thought is this, and this is exactly what the article says, is that this is basically for the first wave of people, because, you build it and you own it. This is great, but you still got to rent it. And what else did it say here? It said, questions remain to how much new housing will actually emerge from this policy change and how affordable it will be. But putting more housing on an existing lot will drive up the value of the land below. We all know that you're not buying a house when you're buying property. You're buying the land. You take a piece of trash out in, broken down piece of trash out and name your place out in Timbuktu, and you put it in downtown Toronto, that price goes from, $100,000 of broken down trash to $1 million because of the land it's sitting on.
Yeah, the exact same house.
The exact same house,
Right.
not even habitable, right? And so obviously the more, it says again, the article says, obviously the more units you can put on a piece of land, the more it's worth. I mean, that would make sense. So again, I think this is great for what it sounds like, But that's for the first person that buys that land or owns it already, puts those properties, the extra units in there. But once you sell it, it's like, like you're talking about Manhattan, it's like you can't buy that, right? You can't rent that now, right? I mean, it's just, I think, I think it sounds great and I like it, but I don't think it's going to do what it's quote unquote supposed to do.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just going to take too long.
Well, it's going to take too long.
Right.
These properties are brand new. You can't build them for I just told you guys earlier, prices of building is going up, surging. And there's so many people out there that are looking to rent. The rent's not going to be affordable, right?
Well, what is it? They say, you need 1.2, 1.3 million new homes by today at 4 p.m.
Dinner time. Dinner time.
Dinner time.
6 o'clock.
Okay. They add an extra 2 hours on.
And I agree with Chris. This is a drop in the bucket. And at best case scenario, maybe it just helps stabilize rent prices for a little bit. But by no means is it the solution. We can go into a solution on a government scale and what they profit off of housing developments, but that might be a whole separate podcast.
I think
don't go there. Don't talk about that.
Well, I heard a stat. I think it's like close to 30%, if not a little bit more.
30,
right?
Just over 30%.
So come on.
Right. And what do they add into it? Just some policy changes?
Right.
They're not putting any dollars in there.
Come on, man.
So,
well, look, rents here. Look, CTV News just last week says rents up 9.6% over 2022, right? Average, and then it's talking about average price in Canada, whatever the case is, right? And this is coming from rentals.ca, which is a big, rental website, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm just looking at it. Now, by the way, if you go to CMHC, they're going to have a different number, right? Because CMHC talks about
purpose built.
Yeah, purpose built for the most part. And the larger players, because they effectively report these things. But if you're looking at mom and pops, then you're going to go to Kijiji, Facebook, rental.ca, and that's a whole different market. Mm-hmm. So all these prices are gone, these rents have gone up. So it sounds good, and I like it. And guess what? As investors, we like it, but is it really going to solve the problem?
Yeah. And I think really what this is as well, too, is an opportunity now for investors to get into Toronto where they could potentially make some of these properties work now.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And again, that's for the first wave. Mm-hmm. That's the first wave of people that get in.
Because now a semi-detached at $900 or $1 million
sounds okay.
Right. Because if I can throw 4 units in there, rent that thing out anywhere from $1,800 to $2,700 a month, depending on how many bedrooms and the size and where in Toronto. Okay, hey, I can maybe make those numbers work.
Right.
But again, what does it come down to? What we said at the beginning. These are investors investing this for the long play. What Chris just say, once those people get in, you think they're selling those? That's a long play.
Yeah, and you can't buy those even if you wanted to. Right. I mean, if like affordably, you can't buy that.
And can the government or someone define affordable for me? This is the hottest buzzword, but we're going to create, the developer has to have X amount of affordable units. What is that? Mm-hmm. Oh, market rents. Oh, well, is market rents currently affordable? Like, I need some clarity. Someone help me with that.
Yeah. And when was the last time they even built apartment buildings anyways? Does they really want some affordable?
I mean, for, in a large scale, right?
Right. One-offs here and there. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
All right, guys, listen, I think this was a great podcast. I enjoyed it. I think maybe
hold on.
Is there something else?
No, it's just this all doom and gloom.
No. Well, we're going to finish off with our final thoughts.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, all. Have a great day.
Final thoughts. All right, Chris, we'll start with you. So, it sounds doom and gloom, but it's not.
It's not.
I think what we're really doing is highlighting some articles, going through it. Now let's give our spin on it and what your thoughts are. And I think we kind of did sprinkle it throughout the podcast.
Yeah, I think we're building a case for taking action, buying real estate. I don't know what else you hear out of that, right? I mean, there's a little bit of doom and gloom in the news, as there always is. But I think we're just building a case for, hey, like, get in now. Like, well, what are you thinking? Right? If you're not calling us to get in now, then I don't know what you're thinking, right? Yeah. In any event, that's kind of what my thoughts are. Again, just going back to my guy, the rental who came in, and that's what I really wanted to tell him.
So don't wait to buy real estate and wait.
Yeah,
right?
like why are you renting from me?
Yeah.
You know, when you can do it, right? Yeah.
Because they're expecting that doom and gloom, that big one where the market's going to crash, and now they can finally get in at the right price.
Okay, what is that? So let's go back to Chris's 1989 analogy. The right price at what? 20% interest rates? Like,
All right.
I don't get it. People weren't buying because prices were too high when they can get 2% mortgages, and now the rates went up. Oh, no. The rates are too high.
Yeah.
What is it?
Exactly.
Right. So I don't know. I guess do whatever you want to do. You know? I mean, realistically, do whatever you want to do. But I still contend that real estate is a pretty good place to be. And if you haven't already, or if you are thinking about it, I just think, take some action, do some research, have a little look, talk to people who know, and take some action. That's all.
Yeah. Q.
I sleep like a baby with my money in the bricks, right? So I like my money in housing, and makes me sleep good at night. I think people have to understand what they can control in their life and control that. Don't get caught up in the hype, this, that, he said, she said, negative media. Look at your own situation, understand what you can control. If you need education in a certain area, go out, take action. Put the onus on your shoulders. The government, this bill, that is not going to bail you out of any situation, lower interest rates. You got to take control of your future. So don't live with regret, take action, and be responsible for your own life.
I agree with that. And I'll wrap it up with this. I think just really kind of echoing what you guys have said, buy real estate. I think it's the best hedge against inflation. I've said this before too. I think multiple skills is another great hedge against inflation. You get multiple skills by diving into something new that you haven't done before,
right,
and doing it with a team that can help you. Number two, don't keep your money in the bank. That's the worst place to keep it, especially when inflation is raging the way that it's raging. That's the worst place to keep it, or under your pillow, or under the bed. Yeah. And don't get caught up in the stats and the reports and the data. Those are all snapshots in the past, right? And here's a great example. 2017. I see all the different reports, and they're scary. They're good. Like, oh my God, look at how high this report is, and look at how much money they've printed, and look at all these things. Okay, fine. You look at all those data. Okay, and it's supposed to correct now. It's got to correct now. Take a look at 2017. Great example. All the experts were saying this, and people who didn't know anything said that. But 2017, what happened? Kathleen Wynne came up with that foreign tax. Nobody saw that coming, unless you were beside her, or unless you were in her cabinet and you knew that was coming. Outside of that, that's a change in the future that you had no idea was going to happen, that impacted real estate. So don't get caught up in looking at data and reports and stats. Yes, they're cool to look at. Yes, they kind of give you some indication. But I've studied and listened to many experts, and lots of them are wrong, and they don't get it right.
Sure. Go back to 2020. Everything that came out was wrong.
Yes.
Right. In fact, you know what? Go back to last year in 2022. Everything they said was wrong.
All the experts.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, whatever.
Right. So keep it simple. Keep it simple. Get into real estate. Hold some hard assets. And I think this is the best way to hedge inflation and to create wealth for yourself, your family, and maybe you bring your friends along with you.
Yeah. And don't forget too, guys, and I don't know, Gary, you've been saying this now, selling is not failing. And if you find yourself in a pinch and you're holding real estate, well, I don't know, I'm just putting two and two together. You've had it for a little while, you let it go.
Right. If it's not working anymore for you.
Right.
I sold one of my properties. It was a single family home. It was a great property when I first bought it. Sold it. Bit of tears. From on our wife's side, it was a bit of emotion, but we know now, we have new experience now that we can put that money to better use.
Put it to better use, and I mean, maybe not for you, but you can bail yourself out if you're in a pinch, And you can't do that if your money was sitting in the bank.
Exactly.
Get ahead of the curve. That's
Exactly.
it. Don't call us too late. Call us early.
Exactly. Selling is not failing.
Yes.
All right, guys. This is an awesome podcast. We'll do this again, and hope everybody enjoyed the show. And I will talk to you guys next week. Take care.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks for listening to today's show with Gary Hibbert. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with your host on Instagram at Gary Hibbert. Until next time, stay mindful and remember, you don't have to be great to start. Just start, and you'll be on the path to being great.